How about there?
There we go. Now
Can you
can
hear
you hear
me?
me? I can hear you loud and
What's
clear.
up,
And
Mike?
I figured this shirt was appropriate for once. I could wear this shirt and talk to you. Finally you're giving us what we wanted. Thank you so much, man, from the bottom of my heart. Just a quick background story. Sound of White Noise came out right the summer before my senior year and basically powered me through my senior year of high school. So it means the world to me that you're taking the time and doing these shows and got you in SoCal at the Whiskey. And a really great marketing trick having your band Category 7, the new band, open up this show.
Well, like I've been telling people, if I was to go out and start a band from scratch, I would get those guys because they're amazing and incredible players. We just did the Headbangers cruise. I just got home last night, and we played our one and only show there, which was kind of weird. We only played once, but it was awesome. And then we did this warm-up show. But it was cool to be on stage and play with those guys again. And it's a great record, actually, the Category 7 record. But they're killer musicians. They're awesome, talented guys. And I've been talking about this doing these Anthrax records and going out for a long time now. So it's like, stop talking about it. Do it.
Love it, man. And going back to the Anthrax days, talk to me about getting the gig. Was it an open casting call? Was it, did they, you were friends with Scott Ian, I imagine, because he was in LA at the time. Talk to me about getting the gig back then.
I didn't really know any of them too well. I knew Scott probably the best, but it was nothing more than just being acquaintances, to be quite frank. I don't know who else they had in mind or what else they were thinking, but yeah, here's the funny story, and I've told people this before. So, of course, a lot of people have heard that at one point I was asked to join Metallica, and I used to
Right.
get calls from John Zazula, who is the band's manager, head of Megaforce Records, managed Anthrax as well, and managed many bands, and Megaforce had plenty of groups as well, and still a label and doing great, and
Sure.
actually re-released the Anthrax records that I'm part of, as well as some of the other ones. And so it's all tied in. But yeah, he would contact me about the Metallica thing. Then that kind of ended, whatever. Stayed with Armored Saint. I've still talked to people about it to this day. And you didn't join Metallica? What are you, an idiot? Anyways, um, and then like 10 years later, almost, it felt like literally a decade later, I'm doing my day job. I came home from it. I put on my answering machine and there's a phone call from John Zazula's office saying, John Zazula wants to talk to you about something. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. And I had heard that, they parted ways with Joey at that point. And so I called up and he gets on the phone. And he's like, ironic I'm talking to you because he had this kind of nice Jersey, New York accent and he's like, and now I'm calling about same thing. So it was pretty funny and it was kind of a funny story that has gone on forever. But yeah, I think the key was mainly, I mean, I obviously my voice is very different from Joey's, and we're very distinctively have our own sound. But I think the key was to make sure that I could be part of the writing process and be a part of being on the creative front. I wanted to do that. I didn't want to come in and just go, okay, I'll just sing the songs that you guys got. I want to be able to be part of it and be somebody who's helping create stuff and helping write songs. So once we started doing that, it was funny. I think only it was like the first song we actually even wrote, and we
Wow.
did it in like an hour. And it was like, okay, well, I guess we got something here, and that's where we ran from.
And obviously bringing in Dave Jordan as well to produce the album.
Yeah, ironic enough, Dave Jordan produced the Symbol Salvation record. And then lo and behold, the next album that I made and he made, I think, was Sound of White Noise, which was kind of weird. And here's another funny irony to it all. My wife has a casting studio. She used a casting director, and we have a casting studio on Sunset Boulevard. And it's literally catty corner from El Dorado. Well, it was El Dorado at the time. I don't know what it is now, but and that was the recording studio that recorded both those records at. So I see it every day when I go to the office with my wife. And the Cat and the Fiddle, which is a legendary English pub, was
Uh-huh.
even more directly across the street that we spent. Armored Saint spent many times hanging out there drinking when we were making Symbol, and the same goes for Sound of White Noise. So, and now it's a different restaurant called Superba, but I go there all the time, and so I'm always there and looking. And I've gone up and rang the bell a couple times just to see if somebody will come out, so I can go, "What is this place now?" Because I made two records here, but nobody answers. They probably see some weird dude, and they're like, "We don't know that guy."
So was Dave your suggestion or were they already looking at him?
I think it was already on their minds that to use Dave.
Ah,
I mean, let's face it, he did so many great records, the Alice in Chains albums, the Chains Addiction albums, Offspring records, those are just the ones that come to mind, and they were all really many, many big albums. So I
sure.
think using Dave, and he was red hot at that time. We were lucky to get him with Sane because, we didn't quite have the same budget as a lot of those bands, and particular Anthrax, but
Right.
he was into the music, so he said, "I'll do it." And we were lucky, and both Symbol of Salvation and Sound of White Noise are probably two of the best records I've ever made. So, and him and Brian Karlstrom, who's his engineer, and Annette, who is the second engineer, they were part of both those records. And unfortunately, both Dave and Brian have passed away, and it's a
Ah,
big bummer.
yeah. Well, dude, skimming through the Anthrax career, you almost had a different lead guitar player on every album you did with the band. Did that factor into the writing and the sound of the music you made, or was it just kind of the core four of you guys writing the music and it didn't have that big of an impact?
Well, I don't know how many people really know this, but Charlie actually writes a bulk of Anthrax's material and always has. That's
Mhm.
funny to think that those riffs of I Am the Law and Madhouse and Indians, he wrote those, but he did actually, and it was Scott who actually concentrated on the lyrics and stuff. So, everybody contributes for sure, and they still do, I think, at this point. But it was kind of funny. You know, I. I think that Dan Spitz was on the Sound of White Noise record, and then he left right after that album. And then Paul Crook was a friend of ours who helped engineer actually Volume 8 and was part of being the lead guitar player on both Stomp and the Volume 8 record. So he was involved in that. And then the next album was where Rob Caggiano came into play, and he actually was part of the We've Come For You album. So yeah, there's some of that going on with different players. But the one guy who was always there, actually for the most part, he was on the last three albums, not on White Noise, was Dimebag. He played a couple
Yeah.
leads on every one of those records,
Yeah.
actually. So that was really, really cool. Yeah, so it was kind of weird. We didn't actually kind of get somebody back in. I mean, Paul, again, he toured with the band on both those albums, Stomp and Volume 8. Um, and then, he engineered the Volume 8 record. I did most of the vocals with him. But it wasn't until Rob came in that we were like, okay, now we're kind of back to being five guys.
Speaking of Volume 8 really quick, I've always been curious. The End of Harm's Way, is that you like chowing down on some potato chips or something? What is that exactly?
Oh, you know what? I think Charlie had a big sheep dog during that period of time. And the dog was, well, th this was two different situations, but yes, it was probably eating some potato chips that Charlie was giving him. But funnily enough, there was a time where that same dog, it was, I think he was feeding him something out of a spoon, and the dog ate the whole spoon. So he had to take the dog to like
The
the
vet.
emergency room, and they had to like cut the spoon out of it. Crazy.
Dude, I appreciate all this insight and stuff. And moving on to we've come for you all a little bit. The one time I got to meet you back in the day, and at the House of Blues. Speaking of old things that it used to be, the old House of Blues sunset. And I think it was that same day, earlier that day, that you did the video for Safe Home, because I remember Keanu Reeves being in the crowd at the show that same night.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to get Keanu to do that. Scott and him were pretty good friends. I'm sure they're still pretty close. And there was a circle that he ran with that both guys were part of, the David Lynch world and stuff. So yeah, it was really awesome to have him do it. Actually, I don't think that was because, well, wait a minute here. Now you got me. I don't have all my memories in line here, but I felt like we did that. Maybe I think that Keanu did his parts in LA for
Hmm.
sure,
Right.
but we recorded the live footage for that in Chicago at the House of Blues in Chicago.
Okay.
So there was some creative editing there, but yeah, it was awesome to have him part of that. And that was one of the biggest songs from that record for sure, and was a big fan favorite.
And he was literally there though that same night at the House of
Yeah,
Blues LA show. He
yeah, I'm
might
sure
probably
he
go
was.
run up out of the mosh pit.
He definitely came to a few shows and probably has come to since many more since then. But yeah, it was awesome for him to do that because again, one of those things he didn't really have to do that.
No.
He was a pretty big star, and for him to go, yeah, I'm going to be in this video. I mean, who knows if we even paid him? I don't know.
And then to be a fan and be at the one thing to do the video, but he wanted to go see you guys at the show and watch the band live.
For sure. Yeah, it was awesome. He helped us out tremendously.
Speaking of that record, which is probably my that and the first one are kind of tied for favorites, but the during the pandemic when Anthrax was doing those docs, which you were a part of,
Yeah.
you kind of talked about how unhappy you were with that record and making that record at that time.
Oh, I did? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
I remember
Oh,
being kind of bummed about that, like all excited to hear you talk about it, and then you're kind of like, I wasn't really into it.
well, that's weird. I don't know why I said that. I don't know what was in conjunction with that, but that's not completely accurate. But I'm not saying I didn't say it because maybe I did. Maybe I was a grumpy that day or something. I
Sure.
don't recall. But no, it wasn't bad. I mean, the only thing that I can remember was that I had gotten married during that time. And so my wife and I got married. We did a quick like honeymoon, and then I came back and went to New York and continued working. So I was a little bummed to like leave her and go, oh no, I mean, and so that's the only thing I can really remember to making me a little disappointed about it. I was staying in this kind of weird, you know, I mean, it was probably like a Holiday Inn or Comfort Inn or one of these hotels in upstate New York a little bit. And so I was kind of, yeah, I was not happening in the city or anything like that. There was nothing there. As a matter of fact, a running joke my wife and I have is that she didn't break like Passover for years, and then she came and met me, and we went to Applebee's, and she had like mozzarella sticks, and she's like, "I can't believe I'm doing this. I never ever, eat a bread product on Passover, and I'm doing it for you, and we're doing it at Applebee's." It's not even good. So, but like that was one of the things I was a little bit isolated there, so maybe that was something I was remembering. But no, I had a great time recording with Rob and Eddie Wall, who's the engineers and
Yeah.
producer on that record. And yeah, I don't know why I said that. It's weird, but I'm correcting it now.
Good, good, good to hear. Because
And I love that record. It's a great, I mean, I love all four records. I mean, I think they're all great and they have their own kind of trip, all of them. Certainly I had them, it was different times in my life because it was over the course of about 12 to 13 years. So I went through a lot of different things, writing, recording, helping, I mean, promote the records, do interviews, and then obviously going on the road and doing everything we can to help sell them. But, it's always a great time. I mean, for me, sometimes the Anthrax years were, it was to me, I had a great time. Sometimes those guys struggled a little bit because they had such success in the 80s, and the 90s were a decline for sure. It was for a lot of bands. It wasn't
yeah,
only Anthrax, it was a lot of bands. And so you had to struggle a little bit and kind of power through that. But for me, it was like, well, this venue is bigger than anything I've done, and this tour is bigger than anything I've done. So I mean, I was having a great time and like, we're going to Europe for 6 weeks. Great. And those guys would be like, "Arr." So I think sometimes, we had a little different mindset in what was going on. But yeah, it was all a good time. There was some struggles sometimes internally. I don't think that was limited to my time in Anthrax actually.
sure.
But yeah, I think that, there's just a lot of headstrong guys in that band and, they're New Yorkers and sometimes there's some battling going on. And we had that, and I tried to like keep the peace sometimes, and I don't know, it was fine. In retrospect, it was all great. And Armored Saint guys, we've been together like 40 years, and we've known each other. The bulk of us, other than Duncan, have known each other for over 50 years, and I think that's a spectacular association with that band. But that doesn't mean it's all strawberries and cream.
Right.
We have our issues, of course. So and all bands do. So
Sure, sure. The great thing about this set that you're doing, you have a killer band behind you, and with using the Category 7 band to play all of the Anthrax tune, and Joey going to be part of these shows as well, who's not typically in Category 7, but stepping in for
right,
these shows.
right. Yeah, well, Joey, he's my bro, and he actually was in
Yeah,
Anthrax for a period of time while I was in, and actually after. As a matter of fact, he did a couple shows with Belladonna, and even the guy who like was the
Dan
second
Nelson.
Dan Nelson. I think he even did a show. I was like, "You play with Dan Nelson? Like what?" And but yeah, so he knows that stuff pretty well, and he's my best friend in the world, so it's just a no-brainer. Unfortunately, Jack had a time issue, and then that got Unfortunately, that his schedule changed, but I had already talked to Joey about doing it. And he was already doing a lot of groundwork. So, I mean, I felt bad because Jack's awesome and such a great dude, but like, that's the way life goes sometimes. But yeah, it's going to be killer. Like I said, these guys are incredible. Jason Bittner did replace Charlie on some dates at one point, or filled in, should I say, not replaced, but filled in for him. So, and he knows those songs very, very well. And he's an incredible drummer and really influenced by Charlie.
Yeah.
So he'll play it amazing. And, Demo and Orlando, those two guys are just spectacular guitar players. So it's going to be killer. We're a lot of work to do. I just got home. I've been working on Category 7 songs. And then, like, 2 weeks before that, I was on tour with Armored Saint for a month, so I was singing those songs. I have a lot of lyrics in my brain. I have to like really like excavate some and kind of get now put some of the Anthrax ones back in my brain. So starting maybe in the next couple of days, I'm gonna get back to work and doing that. But ironically enough, some of those songs they come right back to me, which is cool. I mean, certainly the bigger songs are easy to remember, but
Sure.
I'm telling people I want to play some deep tracks and songs that people don't expect. And so I have a lot of work to do in memorizing those lyrics. And I got about a month and a half. I feel good about it.
Have you gone through and started going through like the songs that you want to do? I mean, there's some that you have to do, like an only, I'm sure you have to
Of
do.
course, yeah. I mean, I already did the set list for LA, and I want to change it up every show. Quite frankly, a little bit. I mean, not too much, but a little bit. And I've sent it out to the guys. I have some work to do to send those guys some background vocal ideas for We've Come for You All in Volume 8.
Hmm.
So I did the first two albums, but I have to do that so they can go and know what parts to sing. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and those guys are going to work real hard too. So I'm real grateful that they're part of it. And like I said, if any of the guys want to come out, and if their schedule permits and they are interested, I know Scott has a little problem with the LA date because he has a wedding in New York,
Ah,
ironically enough, but then he'll probably leave New York by the time the New York show happens.
right.
So, but again, of course, the door's wide open to them if they want to just come, if they want to participate, if they want to do half the set. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Or they could do nothing. But regardless, I've talked about this long enough, and it was time to really start, shut up and get out there and do it. So.
Well, thank you. And curious too, man. Category seven's doing an opening set. Are you going to have a little break in between, or are you going to go like 90 minutes straight? Or
Yeah, I mean, that's a little daunting. But we're probably gonna play like, 30 to 40 minutes and then I'll have a little break, not too much, because actually getting cold is not a good thing for anybody as a singer in particular, or even a drummer. So hopefully the set will be that set change will be brief. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of singing. It is. But the C7 set is probably about 30, 40 minutes. It's not a full set, whereas the Anthrax one is. So.
and Category seven, great band, and kind of a band that formed out of the Metal Allegiance and doing those jams, right?
Little bit with certainly with Devil. I had a history with Mike, with Phil there, and I didn't know Mike at all actually, and Jason I knew a little bit too, and he played a couple of MA shows. Jack, same thing, but yeah, it was cool. The way that happened was really. I hate to use the term organic because it's overused sometimes, but it really was. It was like those guys said, "Hey, would you be interested in this? We've written some tunes," and I said, "Well, send it to me," and I heard it and went, "Wow, that's awesome, man. Holy mackerel." So my whole thing with that again is like, well, what can I do with it? Let me see if I can do something well with it. Next thing we know, we had a few songs and wrote a few more, and it's like, well, let's make a record. So yeah, the record is really cool, and there's some really powerful music on that.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're committed to it. I was worried that when it first came out, it was kind of just going to be a project, an album project, but you seem really committed to the band, which is great.
No, we're talking about doing another record. I need a break because like I said, the same well, we just finished Armored Saint Records. It's in the just finished mixing it. It's in the mastering process. It sounds amazing. I'm real proud of it. Worked really hard on it, and it's gonna come out sometime in around April. But like I need a break mentally from creating because I mean my concern is I don't want to like write some of the same words I wrote. I
Sure.
mean, I'm not a Cambridge graduate here with a spectacular vocabulary. I'm a rock dude, so I use my thesaurus a lot, and my vocabulary is not bad for a guy who grew up in El Sereno, but like I need a break. Like I need a break to get some melodies out of my brain and get some new ones in there. So I said, you guys can work on stuff, but I need a break, so I can come at something with a fresh state of mind.
Yeah, and some more life experience too to gather up to have some stuff to write about.
There's that too. Exactly.
So category seven, more new music to come, and certainly going to be a project. But next year it's going to be an Armored Saint year. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, we have some dates in Europe already booked, a bunch of festivals, and we're going to do some dates with Sabotage, which is really cool because they're a classic band from
Yeah.
kind of our era when they started, and we have a couple of things in the fire. I can't really speak about it yet because I don't know if it's going to happen, but we're going to do the famous Rainbow show that happens like
Okay.
twice a year, and
Yeah.
we're I don't know if that's actually being promoted yet. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about that yet
Oops.
either. That's in April. If it, but it's happening, and we're LA Guns and Striper on it. I hope this is being promoted. Whoops. Anyways, but yeah, that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be really cool. My wife and I become friends with Mike and Amy, who run the Whiskey and the Rainbow, and they're super cool people, and it's gonna be great to play that. And yeah, it's got a lot of Saint stuff next year. It's gonna be great.
Really cool that you guys just played the Glass House out in the IE doing the
Awesome.
Delirious Nomad, and really cool that little shout out to the late great Ace Frehley who we just lost doing right left field
Yeah.
from right field for him.
Yeah, that was a big drag. I saw Ace and Kiss at Anaheim Stadium 1976 on the Destroyer tour. That was my first show ever as a kid, and it was
Wow.
obviously life altering. So, excuse me. But yeah, the Glass House was cool. I was stoked to play there because we never played it. I mean, a lot of times it's associated with like the punk world and hardcore, but
Sure.
certainly metal bands have played it, and I was really excited to do it. And we had a great show. It was awesome. It was the last show of the little run, and it was killer. So thanks to all the people that came out there for that.
Just out of curiosity, man, speaking of Kiss and your Kiss fandom, who's your favorite vocalist of Kiss since they have the four of them?
Yeah, right. I think Eric Carr might even have sang at some point or something.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think Eric Singer actually sings Bath too now. So,
Yeah.
um,
But back
well,
in
you
the
know what?
day,
Excuse me. I think the coolest part is the combination of Gene and Paul's voice together. So I
uh,
think when they do singing together, it really sounds awesome. Let's face it, Ace had his own kind of sound, and he sounded like he was this like kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but like it had that lazy kind of feeling to it. And I mean that in the most optimistic way, believe me.
sure.
Excuse me, but Paul is great and he does what he does, and then Gene has a completely different vibe. So that's what's the beauty of him.
I kind of thought you might say Peter because he's got that little bit of a rasp to
He
his.
does. I mean, Hard Luck Woman was killer, and Baby Driver from Rock and Roll Over. Those are great songs.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were on the Kiss tribute record when I was in Anthrax when we did She. And I think Garth Brooks sang Hard Luck Woman, which is really
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Lenny Kravitz is on that record. And um, very, very different bands like Anthrax is a band you would expect, but there was a lot of different bands that were not even metal bands that were on it, which was cool. So to be part of that was rad. We did She, and great song. That's when Ace did the live solo. Yeah, eventually, I think that went to, I can't remember what song it was once the years passed, but in the early days, of course, it was She that he did his guitar solo too.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But yeah, Hard Luck Woman, all those songs, Black Diamond, Peter sang, and
Strange ways.
yeah, he is a killer singer. Really, he had that raspy trip.
That's why I thought of you kind of with the raspiness.
That's true.
Dude, I appreciate all the time. Last thing I got to hit you with, we're an old school radio station. We do mandatory Metallica every night at 10 p.m. We've talked a lot of Metallica over the years. Next year's going to be looking ahead to the next year and talking about the early 90s earlier. Next year's going to be the 35th anniversary of the Black album from them, the
Okay,
self-titled. Take
insane.
Yeah, take me back to you first hearing like Inner Sandman. What were your initial thoughts? Because it was a big departure from their sound, clearly.
Yes, it was. But you knew that it just sounded so together. I think Bob Rock scared some people when he came aboard, but you heard it and you're like, wow, just the power of it, and and the production of it. It was very different from Justice for All, let's face it. So I think it was the right step. And, our, needless to say, went on to be one of the biggest, hard rock records of all time. So it was the right move. They were ready to take that step. And I love that album. The Black Album is incredible. So James just took his vocal level to a whole nother place. And the songwriting was incredible. And Wherever I May Roam and Sad But True and Sandman, Through the Never, those are all like killer tunes, amazing songs. So
It's interesting with having all this time looking back. When that album first came out, I was one of those bitter kids going, "What happened to my Metallica?" And thank
yeah.
God Anthrax came along and made this record sound of white noise and kept things heavy. But looking back on it now, I almost wonder if it's almost kind of the natural progression for almost any metal band to start off with all that piss and vinegar, and then as time goes on, you start to go, "How can I write bigger songs for a bigger audience?"
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, Metallica was already playing arenas by that point, and Justice for All they were playing arenas, and they were already that band. And then Justice is really cool. It's just a different album, really long songs.
Proggy.
Yeah, proggy. That's a good explanation for it. Certainly the production, I think there was bass on it. It's largest snare sound. So I think that for them to repeat that would have been weird. I think it was time to do something else. And I think it was a natural progression. I mean, the thing I always say about Metallica, and I mean this sincerely, is that they're always willing to take chances. They really are, whether it's, turn the page or cutting their hair or, Saint Anger or,
Lulu.
certainly going from the album with Lou Reed, right? Like all the things that they were willing to do. These are not sometimes things that you're going to go, this is a sure shot. Everyone's going to get it. I don't think everyone got the Lou Reed record, but they did it. And so, and I always, to me, that's the thing I always say about bands is taking chances. Anthrax is another band that did that. I mean, come on, I'm the Man was a big, big chance, and it was successful. Same with Bring the Noise, and then getting in a new singer, and doing Only, which was very different from certainly anything on Persistence of Time. So,
Yeah.
and I say the same thing about Armored Saint. Like we're always willing to try different, bring in different instruments. We're a blues band at art. We're really just a heavy metal blues band, a hard rock band, and we always are willing to do things. Joey Vera sang his ass off on this new record. There's a ton of really killer background vocals.
Uh-huh.
So like there's just a lot, I think the bands that stay the test of time are ones that are willing to take chances. Sure, you can make the argument, like, Slayer, stayed what they were,
Motorhead.
but they're Slayer,
Right.
So at the end of the day, I think ones that can make it a couple of decades or have to be adventurous in the way they do things. And and I think Metallica did that, and I think that's why they're the biggest band. So,
Warts and all, the good and the bad, the whole
and
spectrum.
if you're around long enough, not everything is going to work. It's just
Right.
not. It's just a
Right.
fact, I mean, it's just not. If you can say if you were around for 5 years and you had a couple great records, like, hey, we went on a high note like George Costanza. But the reality is that, you're around for 4 decades of music. You're probably going to do some things that maybe the fan base is going to be like, eh. They're still going to go see you at the SoFi Stadium,
Right.
but the reality is maybe not everything is going to have the same impact as like Master of Puppets did.
Right.
But the reality is you have to be willing to branch out and try different things because if you don't, you feel stale. And I could say that from the standpoint of a singer and a musician myself. Like I love March of the Saint, but I don't want to do it again. We
Right.
did it. So like it's important to take the origins of what you are, but always grow from that. And I think that's real important.
And they certainly have done that over the years. And funny you mentioned SoFi. I did run into you and Joey at that show
Yeah,
at SoFi.
that was awesome.
Just to put a button on it, man, would pick a song for us to play for you on Mandatory Metallica. Do you have a favorite Metallica
Oh, does
tune?
it you want it from the Black Album
Any
or?
album, any
Oh,
album.
yeah, well, I did the Four Horsemen with them, and that was at the 30-year anniversary, and to me, that was still one of the most classic moments of my life to get on stage with those guys and sing as maybe the guy who would have been was not my destiny. Of course, we needed James Hetfield could never be replaced as the one of the greatest frontmen in the world of heavy metal. So I'm glad I didn't do that, but that was a killer moment doing that at the Fillmore in San Francisco. So let's go with Four Horsemen.
Beautiful. Dude, always a blast to get to talk to you. If we had more time, I'd get into a bunch of hockey talk, especially with my Ducks kicking ass right now.
Dude,
But
your Ducks are kicking ass. You know, my son plays for the Junior Kings, so he has a game against the Junior Ducks this Sunday coming up,
oh,
actually.
nice. Nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Ducks have kicked their ass the last two games, so they have a little payback. I don't know. The Ducks are pretty good, but yeah, the pro Ducks are doing great.
Yeah,
So
kicking ass right now. Well, dude, I can't wait for the whiskey show. Hopefully, I'll get to say hi to you out there. Thank you so much for the time, as always.
yeah, this was a great interview. Thanks for taking it somewhere else and making it fun. Appreciate that.
Thanks, John.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
brother. Adios. Bye.